So today's a very special day as we come to listen to the debate in the Valley, to hear who's going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. And we are in Dervanda, the beautiful gardens here, Milner Gardens, owned by Byron and Tamara Jansen. And they have done such a terrific job providing this beautiful greenhouse for us to enjoy this debate. Would you give them a huge thank you? I want to thank the media for being here, all the different media outlets. I also want to thank the different EDAs that were participating in putting on today's debate. That's Abbotsford, Cloverdale, Langley City, Mission, Matsqui, Fraser Canyon, and Langley Alder Grove. The president of Cloverdale Langley City is Steve Shaver, and Steve actually helped put this together. He led it. We all came together and supported him, but Steve, thank you for the hours and hours that you put into this. We also have some dignitaries with us today, federal dignitaries, and Yana Martin is the senator for Canada for British Columbia, and she will be our moderator, so welcome, Yana. Our National Council President, Scott Lamb, and he will be bringing greetings shortly. Also on National Council is Don Nightingale. Don, you're here, I believe. Welcome. They work so hard for us and represent all the members, Conservative members in Canada. We have Ron Cannon, Member of Parliament, the Honourable Ron Cannon. Where are you? There he is. Randy Camp, a former MP. Randy, where are you? Randy and Ruth. We have Carolyn Finley, the Honourable Carolyn Finley. We have the Honourable Ed Fast from Abbotsford. We're going to hear more from Ed. Ed's a walking miracle, and he's going to share, I'm sure, toward the end, at the end. And Mel Arnold from the Okanagan. Mel, where are you? There you are. And none of this could happen without the help of our BC regional organizer, Christine Remedios. Where are you, Christine? And Sharon Hayes was a Reform Party member of Parliament a long time ago, and she is still active and standing up for Canadians. And Sharon, where are you? There she is. Thank you so much. So Scott Lamb became our new president in May of last year. And what a terrific job he is doing and has done before, and that's why he was elected president. And he's a lawyer and doing an incredible job, very bright, very committed, but very engaging and meeting with members of our party across the country. Scott, would you come up and bring greetings for us?
Thank you very much, Mark. It's really a pleasure always to be in your riding. It's an amazing organization you have here and throughout the Valley. And folks, let's have a big round of applause for Mark Wara. And I'd also like to have a thank you to Senator Martin. Many of you may not know, Senator Martin's the first Canadian senator of Korean descent to serve in the Senate. She was appointed in 2009 and is really an exemplar of what senators can be and what they can do for our country. So thank you, Senator Martin, and another big round of applause for Senator Martin. This is just a great day for our party, a great day to be here in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. This venue is spectacular, and again, thanks to the Jansen family for hosting us here. It's a really tremendous venue we've got. And the turnout, there's over 500 people here, and they had to turn people down. It's amazing. And the people that were disappointed they couldn't come today, and for those of you who want to get a little bit more, I'm encouraging you to go out to the Vancouver event at the Bogue Theatre tomorrow, about the same time. So please feel free to get your tickets and head out there for tomorrow. These events don't happen in our party unless volunteers do them. And we have over 80 volunteers today that put this on. And let's have a big round of applause for those people. When you have 80 volunteers putting together an amazing event like this, it tells you that our activists and our volunteer base is ready and wants to win in 2019. Absolutely. Now, I get this comment, Scott, this is a crazy, crazy leadership race you guys are running. There's 14 candidates. There's way too many. And you know what I say to them? There's another party that has a leadership race on right now, the NDP. And how many candidates do they have? One. So I say, I'll take 14 over one day. And what you're going to see is great depth talent in our party. And they all want to be the leader. And why? Why do they want to be the leader of our party? Because we have almost 100 MPs in the House of Commons right now. And under the amazing leadership of Rona Ambrose, they are putting lots of dents in that Liberal wagon. Now, the wheels may not have come off that wagon yet, but I got to tell you, it's getting wobbly going down the road. So they're doing a great job. In terms of party organization, we last year in May, not more than 10 months ago, had the most successful convention we've ever had in our party's history. Most elected delegates ever to a Conservative Party convention, doubled our total of youth engagement, and we had the best record for youth engagement. Those are the sort of things that we're doing, and we're making progress. We're making progress, obviously, on our communications, training. Many of you actually were out for our training had a few weeks ago in Vancouver. And we're also running a leadership race that is well organized. And you know what? I got to tell you, you know why it's well organized? Because you don't read about it in the newspaper. None of our organizational issues, other parties are doing the leadership races, they're having problems. You're running a very smooth operation. So I'm very proud of that. Of course, today we're here to hear a debate, and that will lead to a vote in May for our new leader. And it's your decision. It's the decision, direction of our party, where we go as a country. And really, as Mark said very accurately, make no mistake, you will be picking the next Prime Minister of Canada. So enjoy the debate, and I want to thank you very much for all your support for our party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. What a terrific job National Council is doing and our new president. I want to provide some little practical information for you. And this is a casual gathering. There's opportunity to ask questions, and if you want to go over to the side there, you can submit a question to be asked of the candidates. To my right, your left, in the corner, there is an exit. Now, the plastic walls are very movable, and so in a case of emergency or for some reason you have to leave, there is an exit in that corner. There's exits to the rear and exits over to my left, your right. Washrooms are over by where the registration were, and over by that blue hoist there and the Conservative sign, over in that corner is handicap washroom. So washrooms back over by registration. And then, of course, there is some refreshments, some coffee and water back in the corner. It's my great honor to introduce the moderator for today's debate. And as Scott did mention, the Honorable Yana Martin was appointed by Prime Minister Stephen Harper in 2009, and she was the first Canadian of Korean descent to serve in the Senate of Canada and the first Korean-Canadian parliamentarian in Canadian history. Senator Martin is currently the Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Senate since 2015, November. She previously served as the Deputy Leader of the Government in the Senate from 2013 to 15, and as the Deputy Whip of the Government 2011 to 13. Her notable achievements since her appointment to the Senate include the enactment of her Senate public bill, the Korean War Veterans Day Act, that was in 2013, the successful campaign to add TCM, acupuncturist, to the schedule of health professionals for GST, HST exemption. Oh, trying to keep our taxes down, well done. And the adoption of a motion to annually recognize June as Deaf Blind Awareness Month and the implementation of the historic Canadian-Korea FTA. And Ed Fast probably had a lot to do with that too. And so our moderator is somebody that is highly esteemed, revered, respected. She works very hard for us, very bright woman, and she will be our moderator. Please give her a warm welcome to Yana Martin.
I'll stay down here. Thank you, Mark, for your kind remarks, and to Scott and Don and to everybody that is here present. This is an amazing venue, and I know it's going to be a very exciting and productive day for us with this debate. According to my time, I should have ended a minute ago, but I do have some instructions that I have to pass along to you. So if I may, I want to just acknowledge all of the candidates, their families, and their campaign teams for their incredible dedication. I know the amount of work that they have put into preparing and to be here with us today. It's a real honor for me to be your moderator. And with that said, if I can explain for the benefit of everyone present how today's debate will proceed. So once all the candidates are on stage, we'll begin with the 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. Their seating and speaking order have been determined by drawing numbers just minutes ago, and I have the list on my table. Following the opening statements, we'll move into the pre-selected questions round. This section consists of 4 pre-selected questions chosen from the following categories in no particular order: the economy, healthcare, federal-provincial relations, the environment, foreign relations, social policies, the military. 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, messieurs, dames ici, qui sont francophones, francophiles, et tous ceux qui parlent français à travers the Fraser Valley au Canada. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Rick Peterson, Honorable Ed Fast. What a pleasure to see you here. Thank you for your service, and good to see you here in good health. I'm here today, ladies and gentlemen, asking for your support to become the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. I am here because I, like you, am a small business person, an individual who meets payroll every day, who works hard to create jobs, who has a company that is doing the best it can to gain market share and to provide a living for my employees and to serve my clients. Over the last 30 years, since 1986, I've been a member of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada and the Conservative Party of Canada. I have to commend you on the best organized debate that we've seen so far. And I think with people like Steve Schaefer and others who are at the helm, you are living proof of the fact that BC needs a bigger voice in the Conservative Party of Canada. The Conservative Party of Canada needs a leader from British Columbia. And Canada needs a prime minister from the fastest growing, most productive province in this country. I'm here to offer you my vision for a stronger Canada, a stronger party, and a stronger country. My tax and platform on the fiscal and economic side at petersonleader.ca is a 0% corporate tax, a 15% flat tax, creating jobs, balancing the budget, and giving a fiscal responsibility approach. At the end of today, you're going to have to decide who among us can beat Justin Trudeau. For that, you need a plan, il faut être bilingue, and you have to have grassroots experience. I look forward to working with you and for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our opening statement from Lisa Raitt.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, BC, first of all, for showing us that there is sunshine in this country, because we haven't had much of it, I'd say, in Ontario in a long time. It's great that Rick mentioned at the end that we're going to be picking the person who's going to lead us to victory in 2019. And when you're assessing all of us up here, I'd ask you consider the following 4 things, because I think these are the things that go into helping us win in 2019. First of all, we need somebody who has been a leader before. And I would tell you that I have been the CEO of the Toronto Port Authority, and I've been the Minister of Natural Resources, of Labor, and Transport, all important files in Stephen Harper's government. The second thing you need to have is experience. And boy, I had some very tough files, and I had to make decisions in very difficult circumstances where people's lives were involved. And I've learned from those, and I think I've made good experience decisions based upon what's good for Canadians. The third thing is a life story, because Canadians want to know that you know who they are, because you're getting them to give you their vote, which is such an important personal thing to give. They're giving you control of their destiny. My history is I'm from the other side of the country. I was raised in Cape Breton by senior citizens, so I've lived like a senior most of my life. I know what it's like to struggle, and I know what it's like to get opportunity to do better. The fourth is the vision for the party, and in my book, the only way to win in 2019 is to have a big tent conservative team that accepts everybody, that works with everybody, and that ensures together we beat Justin Trudeau and the Liberals in 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa Raitt. Next, we have Brad Trost.
Well, thank you ever so much for having us here today. It is good to be here. My name is Brad Trost. I'm a member of Parliament, a husband, a father, and when I entered this campaign, I laid out very clearly what I am. I am 100% conservative. What does that mean? What is the vision? What should the future of our party be? Well, 100% conservative is, in my view, 3 things. Someone who is socially conservative, who can reach out there and get the people in our country who on cultural issues, social issues, it doesn't matter if the issue is gun control, the sanctity of human life, who can bring forward those new Canadians who, while maybe not high up on the socioeconomic ladder, are culturally conservative, who can bring them into their party. They are the future. But it's also someone who is fiscally conservative, who firmly and totally believes in low taxes, controlling government spending, having the government for what is necessary, not being all things to all people. And finally, I believe it should be someone who is a democratic conservative. We all know Ottawa doesn't know best. We know that's true when it comes to the government. We also need to be reminded that's true when it comes to our party. So we need a party where we actually empower the membership to work on strategy, to work on policy, to build from the grassroots up. That's what's made the Conservative Party great in the past. Those 3 things are the key to my vision. I want a 100% Conservative Party, a party that reaches out to social conservatives, fiscal conservatives, a democratic, fully conservative party. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad Trost. Next, I invite Andrew Scheer.
Well, thanks everyone. Great to see such a great crowd here in Langley. And if this is what February is like here, I know why so many people moved from Saskatchewan to BC over the years. I'm in this race for one simple reason. I can't let Justin Trudeau do the same thing to my 5 children that his father did to my generation. Pierre Trudeau left my generation with a legacy of debt and deficits that we're still paying off. And now that's what Justin's doing to my kids. When you think about it, that's the exact opposite of the Canadian experience. The Canadian experience, whether people have been here for many generations or have just arrived here, is to sacrifice for ourselves so that our children have better opportunities. What the Liberals are doing is reaching into the future, taking that prosperity away and spending it politically today. So we need a leader that can keep our caucus united. We need a leader that can keep every kind of conservative in the tent, excited to work in the 2019 election. We need to win seats back here in BC, win back seats here in BC. We need to win seats all across the country. We need a leader that can communicate to conservatives and voters in both official languages. I can do that. I was Speaker of the House of Commons. I was elected by my peers at the age of 32, the youngest Speaker in Canadian history. I'm very proud to have the support of members of Parliament from every province that we hold seats. We need to learn the right lessons from the last election. The wrong lesson would be to think that we need to be more like the Liberals or become liberal light or start advocating for things that we don't believe in. I reject that because when voters are presented with Liberals and people acting like Liberals, they'll vote for the real thing. We need to offer a clear, conservative alternative, and we need a leader that can bring our message to a broader audience of Canadians. I'm asking for your support because I know I can do it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew Scheer. And reminder to the audience to please listen attentively. Thank you. And next we have Pierre Lemieux.
Thank you very much. Il m'a fait un grand plaisir d'être ici parmi vous cet après-midi. I believe Canadians want a leader who understands service. Service to our country, Canada, service to you as Canadians. And I offer my service in terms of 30, 20, 10. 30 years of service to my wife and to my family. I'm the father of 5 children, the grandfather of 2 grandsons. But also 20 years of service to our country, Canada. So those of you in the crowd that are 17 years old, I met a number of you today. I joined when I was 17, when I was your age. And I served our country for 20 fine years. And I retired at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. And as well, 10 years of service as a member of Parliament. My riding is in Ontario. I served from 2006 right through to 2015, helping us form that strong national conservative government. You're going to hear a lot of commonality in our answers today because we're all conservative, right? So there's going to be a lot of commonality. But here are some of the things that make me different. I'm social conservative. I stand for social conservative values. And for you in the crowd and across Canada who share those values, I want you to know that there's a leader who's proud to have those values and who will represent you and work hard to represent you. I'm pro-life, for example. So I believe in the value and dignity of human life from the moment of conception through to natural death. And I've been proactive saying that in our strong and healthy democracy here in Canada, we should be able to talk about this. How is it that we can't talk about life issues when they matter to millions of Canadians? And just to give you an example, many politicians, when you ask them about life issues, what's the answer you hear? That debate's over. That debate is shut down. I will not reopen that debate. Very undemocratic, and I'm here to stand for democracy. And today I released a message on freedom of conscience for our doctors who want to have the freedom to not participate in euthanasia or assisted suicide without the threat of losing their jobs. I think as Canadians, we respect freedom, freedom of speech, which I've been an advocate for, and freedom of conscience.
Thank you, Pierre Lemieux. Next we have Chris Alexander.
Thanks everyone for being here. Merci d'être là. First, let's have another round of applause for Tamara and Byron Jansen for hosting us here at Darvanda Nurseries.
That's all right.
I would also like to salute the 3 Syrian refugees that they are sponsoring. George, Rosha, and Daoud, I think they're here somewhere. They are what Canada is about. That family, that sponsorship, we are a model to the world, an example to the world, and we have a mission in the world. I grew up in Ontario. I was proud to plant trees in northern British Columbia as a student. I served Canada in Russia, in Afghanistan. I've seen the world's challenges. And as a minister in the last Conservative government, I had a hand in transforming our immigration system, our citizenship program, to be the best in the world. And my vision for Canada is a Canada that is the best in the world. We need to build a bridge to the rest of the world to ensure the prosperity of next generations. We need to build on the prosperity of the trade deals negotiated by Ed Fast and Stephen Harper with Europe, with Latin America, with Asia. We need to create the companies here in Langley, here in the Lower Mainland, across Canada, that will carry Canadian goods and services everywhere. We need to make government work. We need to make Canada stronger, with stronger national defense, a stronger agenda for our First Nations, a stronger agenda for our environment, and we need to be ready to win in 2019 by speaking to all Canadians, by bringing Canadians together in cities, in rural areas, east, south, north, and west. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you, Chris Alexander. Next, we have Maxime Bernier.
Merci. Bonjour. Je suis Maxime Bernier, député de Beauce. I'm from Beauce, Quebec. And I'm a conservative who believes in individual freedom and personal responsibility. Before being in politics, I was a VP of financial institution in Quebec. And I decided to be a politician in 2006 to fight for what we believe as conservative. We believe in freedom, fairness, respect, and all our campaign, it is based for these 4 principles. So I will give you an example. I don't want to work for special interest group. I want to work for you. I want to work for all Canadians. And it is why I'm against the cartel of supply management, where you're paying twice the price for dairy, poultry, and eggs. I'm the only one on the stage who want to fight for you. It is why also I want to abolish corporate welfare and being sure that the small business entrepreneur here will pay lower taxes, and every entrepreneur must pay lower taxes also. I don't believe in a big, fat government in Ottawa. I believe in a government that will respect the Constitution and respect taxpayers. I have faith in people. I have faith that you have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make your own decision and determine your own destiny. That's why I'm a conservative. I'm a proud conservative. So I think all together we can be back in government in 2019 if we are conservative and speaking about what we believe with passion and with conviction. And I'm ready to do that in French and in English. And I thank you for this opportunity today. Thanks.
Thank you, Maxime Bernier. Next, we have Aaron O'Toole.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Aaron O'Toole, and I want to start off by saying I disagree a little bit with Rick Peterson. I don't think people from British Columbia expect the next leader to be born and bred in British Columbia, but I do expect that you expect our next leader to respect British Columbia and our grassroots here. That's why 5 hours after I launched my campaign in the small town in southern Ontario that I grew up in, I was on a plane to British Columbia, because I think key to us winning the next election is to rebuild here in this province. And it's easy to do that because we've got an amazing team here. Mark, Ed, great people like Ron Cannon that we need to make sure are back. Yona Martin and I worked on the South Korean trade deal together. So you're fortunate. You have an amazing team, and our grassroots here in the province are truly exceptional. And that's why I've been to British Columbia more than any other province, and why I'm very proud to have most of the members of Parliament in our caucus supporting me. Why? Because I think we can be very proud of the first chapter of the modern Conservative Party. Stephen Harper helped bring together 2 parties that had been bickering and fighting and allowing the Liberals to win. We were united. We won a minority government. We won a majority government. And the result was exceptional. The best economic growth and job creation in the G7 since the Great Recession. And we did that while lowering taxes to their lowest point since John Diefenbaker. We rebuilt the Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm very proud to have served 12 years in the forces, starting with boot camp here in Chilliwack after high school. All of those things were critical for our country's future, and any of the benefit our economy has now, including the European Trade Agreement that I worked on with Ed, was from our Conservative government. But it's time to tell our story with our Conservative principles in a new way, with a new leader, and I believe I'm that person. I need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron O'Toole. Next, we have Stephen Blaney.
Thank you, Erin. Erin and I have been Veterans Affairs Minister, and we were privileged to serve veterans. My name is Stephen Blaney, so I'm the other guy from Quebec with an Irish name, so it's easy to remember. The theme of my campaign is fairly simple as well. Security, stability, prosperity. And there are, I would say respectfully, folks here who embodies what I mean. Security. I have a private member's bill in front of the House now on impaired driving. We can save Canadian lives. Talk to all your MPs and tell them support this bill, C-226. And I owe this bill to a guy who's here with his wonderful wife, Mark, thank you for having sponsored my bill and giving me the idea to save Canadian lives on our road. So that's security, because there is no freedom without security. And of course, as Public Safety Minister, I did C-51, the Anti-Terrorism Act, and I'm very proud of that. Now, let's talk about stability. We have many people who've served in the Army, but Senator Yona Martin, she paid a tribute to our Korean War veterans. And Senator Martin, I want to thank you for all the outstanding work you did. And I'm going to show you something. You know I like prop. But this is something I have. It's made of silk from an artist from Montreal, and look at that. Yeah, well, it wasn't scheduled. It's a puppy made of silk by a Canadian artist. That's what is all our country is all about, is stand up for what we believe. And the last thing, prosperity. And this is something you may see, although I'm from Quebec, I disagree a little bit with my friend from Quebec. But I agree fully with Ed Fass, who as an international trade minister has signed one of the largest free trade agreements with all the countries around the world, with Europe, while protecting farmers, while protecting our Canadian prosperity, while protecting our dairy, our poultry, our egg producer. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen Blaney. Next, Kelly Leach.
Freedom, prosperity, a unique Canadian identity. I believe we have a shared value set as Canadians. Hard work, generosity, freedom, tolerance, equality of opportunity, not the equality of outcomes that Justin Trudeau wants with us all at the bottom together. I think that if you work hard, you and your family should be able to be generous. Those are the values that are enshrined in our Constitution. They're what we're about. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a lot of common sense ideas, whether that be abolishing the carbon tax, making sure we have a balanced budget, making sure we have common sense immigration policy. Last year, 270,000 individuals came to Canada and never met a Canadian with a face-to-face interview on entry. I believe, as the Senate Standing Committee on Defense has talked about, that each individual immigrating to Canada, or a refugee or a visitor, should meet a Canadian on entry. This is something that I would actually implement across the board, and 2/3 of Canadians agree with me. It's about building the nation we want to have and inviting people into our family. We are the envy of the world. We are the beacon of hope for every person across the globe. These are values that we must protect. I plan to protect them, and I'm the only candidate on the stage talking about this serious issue and what we need to do to make sure Canada is the Canada we want in the future. I look forward to talking with you this afternoon. Thank you very much for hosting us. I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Kelly Leach. Michael Chong.
Hi, I'm Michael Chong. I'm from Fergus, Ontario. My wife, Carrie, and I have 3 young boys, and we live on a farm just outside of Fergus. I'm also the son, the kid of immigrant parents. My father was a Chinese immigrant, my mother was a Dutch immigrant, and I know here in the Fraser Valley, in the greater Vancouver area, there are many Dutch immigrants. And ik kan een beetje Nederlands praten. Je parle français aussi, so if you want to ask questions in Dutch or in French, we can answer them. Whenever I come here to the greater Vancouver area, I'm reminded of the 3 great lies in Canadian life. First, the check's in the mail. Secondly, this won't hurt a bit. And third, I'm from Ontario and I am here to help. I think we've helped you enough this winter with all the snow we've sent west to you in the past couple of months. I'm the leadership candidate on this stage and in this race that has the most conservative policies and principles. I'm the most conservative on democratic reform. My 10-point plan will give more power back to grassroots Conservative Party members and more power back to the people. I'm the most conservative on the environment. My plan to reduce emissions is based on conservative principles of free markets and smaller government. And I'm the most conservative on the economy. My economic plan begins with one of the largest income tax cuts in Canadian history, an $18 billion income tax cut that will put more money back into the pockets of Canadian consumers and Canadian companies. And I'm also the leadership candidate here on stage that is best able to beat Justin Trudeau. And here's the proof. Ask Liberals across this province and across this country which candidate in this leadership race of 14 that they are most worried about. And the answer that consistently comes back is Michael Chong. But I can't do it without your help. Help me in building a much, much bigger Conservative Party that's based on our conservative principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael Chong. Andrew Saxton.
Fellow Conservatives, fellow British Columbians, what a terrific turnout today. This is a sellout crowd. We have standing room only, and it shows that the Conservative spirit is alive and well and ready to win back government in 2019 here in British Columbia. So thank you all for being here today to show your support. For the last 5 months, I've been traveling across the country from coast to coast, and I've been listening to Conservatives. And Conservatives have the same concern. They're concerned about their jobs, and they're concerned about the economy. Because this Trudeau government is the most economically inept since the last Trudeau government. Conservatives are also concerned about the debt and the deficits of this Trudeau government. They're calling Justin Trudeau the $1 trillion man. He's actually the $1.5 trillion man. We need a leader who understands how to grow the economy. We need a leader who understands how to create jobs. And we need a leader who understands how to balance the budget. Et on a besoin d'un leader qui parle les deux langues officielles du Canada. We need a leader who's bilingual. I am that leader. I have over 30 years' experience in finance. I've worked for 2 of the world's largest banks in 5 countries. At the age of 33, I was Senior Vice President of HSBC in Singapore. I'm the CEO of a real estate investment company. I also worked with the late Jim Flaherty as his parliamentary secretary. And I was part of the finance team that balanced the budget, the last Conservative budget 2 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a leader who understands how to balance the budget. And I am that leader, which is why today I launched my plan to bring us back to a balanced budget in 2021, 2 years after I take over as Prime Minister of Canada. I'm the only candidate on this stage who has a plan, a detailed plan. It's on my website, andrewsaxton.ca, and I challenge my fellow candidates to come out with a plan as well to show how they're going to balance the budget. Merci beaucoup.
A big round of applause for all of the candidates. Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. It's very clear that you have the passion and the commitment to be our leader for the future. So now we'll move into the pre-selected questions round, where you will be in groups of 3. So what will happen is you will be called up to the center of the stage. You may get the mic from either side. You will have 1 minute to respond to the question asked to your group, again, taking turns based on your speaking order, followed by the 3-minute period in which I hope to limit my participation and allow you to continue your debate. I'll just reiterate what we're hoping in this portion is that it will continue in a collegial atmosphere, that the speakers are not interrupted. So the speakers need to be concise, given that there's a 3-minute time limit and that there is a sort of a flow that is established. And as necessary, if we feel that we can't hear any of you, we will shut the mics off and give everybody a little time out before we resume. And we know that all of you have very important things to say as you participate in this 3-minute period round. So our first, what will happen is we have the Riding Association presidents who will be selecting the questions from a group, from a collection. So we'll begin with Group A, which is the first 3 candidates. So I will ask Rick Peterson, Lisa Raitt, Brad Trost to get a mic from either side of the stage, stand in the center. And for our first round question in alphabetical order by riding, we'll begin with the president of Abbotsford EDA. Okay, so we'll have Jim Pratt draw a question, which I will read And the first person on the list, who would be Rick, would be invited to answer. So the first category is social policies. Justin Trudeau famously campaigned on legalizing marijuana in the last election. By contrast, Stephen Harper said, quote, drugs are not dangerous because they're illegal because they're dangerous, end of quote. In Vancouver, we have the country's only 2 legal supervised injection sites where people are provided fresh needles and can legally inject illegal drugs into their bodies. According to a recent study, over 86% of all drugs tested at one of the sites contained fentanyl, a drug responsible for over 220 deaths in the first half of last year alone. The question will begin with Rick Peterson. What is your position on the legalization of drugs and the so-called safe injection sites? Rick Peterson.
2 questions, Yolanda. First of all, let's make it clear I am against the legalization of marijuana. I believe that marijuana is a gateway drug. However, I am a realist in the sense that I know a very good chance that marijuana will be legalized. And as Prime Minister, I will make sure that any fiscal benefits, any taxation that comes from this goes directly into healthcare targeted to seniors' care. Let's be clear about that.
30 seconds.
In terms of the safe injection site, I favor the safe injection sites. Having live in Vancouver, having done volunteer work with First Nations youth and other people in the downtown east side, and listening to people on the ground who work and try the best they can to moderate and influence and stop the flow of lethal drugs, they are in favor of it, and I am in favor of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Lisa Raitt. There's 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Senator. I can tell you that as a mom of 2 boys, 15 and 12, this is one of the topics that consume my mind. It's one of the topics that the residents of Milton, where I represent, think about a lot as well, because we're one of those communities where we're raising our families. On the topic of legalization of marijuana, I would say this, that the Liberal government indicated that they would legalize it and have it in place by 2019. I think that was a false promise. I don't think that's possible, and as a result, we are going to be dealing with this when we're government in 2019. But like Rick, I also believe fundamentally it's going to be very difficult to roll the ball back on it, so we have to see where we are with respect to that legislation at that time and make it less available to children, because that's my key concept. With respect to in-site injections, the key for me on this is the legislation going through right now, while it does try to deal with the opiate crisis that is happening in our country, the problem is communities don't have enough time to weigh in. I would change that. I would make sure communities would have time.
Thank you. Brad Trost.
In your preamble, you stated Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau's position. And tonight, I'm going to say the same thing in every question. Stephen Harper was right. Justin Trudeau was wrong. We don't need to legalize marijuana. And let's remember, the Liberals are good at promises. So let's not guarantee that that's going to happen. So that's one thing. We need to remain firm on that position, continue to work. The one criticism I do have of our previous government, we should have engaged on the education file on that much more aggressively, rather than let advocates of legalization of marijuana go out there and say it's completely safe. We need to get ahead on that issue. Safe injection sites, I don't think that's exactly the proper term for them. I think they're places that carve out exceptions in the law. You cannot have exceptions in the law if the law is to be objective, okay? Almost all the studies of that place have been tied back to one researcher who had a vested interest in the place that's being found when it was founded. I am opposed to it. We need to take legislative action to stop these things from spreading. Thank you.
Thank you. Now this is the 3-minute open round, which is the first one that we're doing. So I hope that someone will begin. Any one of you can respond to what you hear. Please do not interrupt one another, and I hope that all of us will be listening carefully to what you have to say in each of your positions.
I just want to say...
Who would like to begin?
Lisa, ladies first, please.
Oh, thank you, Rick. I will
3 minutes starting now.
I will take all the 3 minutes after that. Thank you very much. Never give me an opening. You may never get it back.
You got 30 seconds.
Brad, you indicated we didn't do a good job in education. I can tell you that I launched Health Canada's initial reaction to trying to educate parents about this in Oakville, Ontario with Terrence Young. We talked about the impact that marijuana has on brains of youth. And we talked about it, I thought, in a very good way. The Liberals didn't like the fact that we tried to communicate with Canadians, and they indicated that we shouldn't have been putting out this information. You can go to my website and see that continuously I've told people I'm very concerned about the effects on young people. So my focus, if we're faced with this in 2019, would be to ensure that kids under the age of 25 don't have access, because that is where science tells us is the cutoff.
Well, Lisa, I was just saying you should have got more support from the Prime Minister. And when I make you Health Minister, you'll have all the support you need.
All I can say to Brad is that, you know, Brad, if you walk down, if you take the bus and you walk down East Hastings, you tell me how you're going to legislate out of the misery and of the deaths that are happening every day. You tell me how you're going to legislate, Brad, out of the crisis that is affecting every single young men and women who've been turned out because of mental health issues. You tell me how you are going to legislate the lack of leadership from the mayor of Vancouver, who refuses to shut down grow ops and legal marijuana places when they are against the law. How do you legislate against civic officials who turn a blind eye to the increasing dealing of drugs on our streets? How will you do that?
The purpose of being a leader is not to give up when somebody opposes you. The purpose of being a leader is to stand up and do what is right. It is right that we enforce our drug legislation in the country. It is right that we require the law to be implemented.
Safe injection sites are not against the law, Brad. Safe injection sites are not against the law. Show me where it's against the law.
The notwithstanding clause permits Parliament to make that decision.
Have you done that on the you are in the House. Would you introduce the notwithstanding clause?
I have no problem.
Have you?
I have said it before.
Have you done it?
I will use it again.
Why don't you do it?
Mr. Peterson,
Make
we'll just
me
hear
Prime
from
Minister,
Brad.
Rick.
Thank you.
As Health Minister, I'd help them both work it out. I am a collaborator.
There's 30 seconds remaining.
Yeah, it's an incredibly important issue, and it's important to look at the humanity that surrounds it as well. And I know we have an issue that we did mention in the preamble that has to do with fentanyl. That's a crisis in the country, and I'm very proud of the work that Senator Vern White is doing on this topic in the Senate of Canada, bringing it to our attention.
Every one of these politicians up here have had time in the House to enact and put private members' bills on issues that they're raising right now. If they haven't, you have to ask why.
Education is important, but so is enforcing the law. We can walk and chew gum.
Thank you. Rick Peterson, Lisa Raitt, Brad Trost. Well done. The category is the environment. It has been said that anthropogenic global warming, climate change, is the fraud that will die the death of 1,000 paper cuts. With scandals at East Anglia University, the so-called ClimateGate leaked emails, and most recently claims that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration altered their temperature data to hide the pause, global temperatures plateaued nearly 20 years ago, it appears that this may be true. In light of these facts, what is your view on any model which proposes to label carbon dioxide as a pollutant, seeks to attach a value to carbon, or to tax emissions of carbon dioxide? Andrew Scheer, 1 minute.
I think maybe Brad wrote this question. This is look, there's a couple things that drive me crazy as a conservative, and that is the way the Liberals play with language. You'll notice that what was being proposed as a carbon tax, the Liberals and then the media quickly changed to calling a price on carbon pollution. Well, CO2 is not a pollutant. CO2 exists naturally in the atmosphere, and we need to live. It's also not a price when the government sets the cost, imposes it on a population, and collects it. That's not a price, that's a tax. I will repeal the carbon tax, job number one, when I become Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. I think I'm like everyone in this room. We care about our environment and we want to protect our environment. I think of clean rivers, I think of clean land, but we do not buy into the carbon tax scenario and that CO2 or CO is pollution. And I think that that is, in fact, a tax grab by the Liberals. What will that ultimately achieve? You will not be able to measure success for all the pain and suffering, financial pain and suffering, that will be inflicted on you and every single Canadian. And it will inflict financial pain and suffering on you and every single Canadian. It will suck money out of the economy, it will kill jobs, and it will put money into the pockets of the Liberals who will fritter it away on all of their pet projects. As leader and as future Prime Minister, I will repeal the carbon tax. And instead, if there's going to be environmental investment, it's going to be in the types of things I was talking about in fighting real pollution, in keeping our lakes and our rivers clean and pure, in protecting our forests, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Alexander.
Carbon tax is wrong. It's the wrong policy for Canada. It's the wrong policy for the world. It doesn't work. It doesn't reduce carbon emissions. It is anti-competitive. For us as a major oil exporter, as a major natural resource producer, it takes us out of the game that others will take our place. Thirdly, it's regressive. It hits the poor. It hits those on fixed incomes much harder, and we don't need that, where in too many parts of Canada, energy policy is already incoherent and out of control. Look at my native Ontario. So my policy on a carbon tax is simple. No carbon tax, no federal carbon tax ever. But we're in the Paris Agreement for now. The Harper government took us there. We're in for now. We have to reduce our emissions. We do that by incentivizing industry to be cleaner and by looking after our environment in the broad sense. Oceans, forests, water. We need to be the best at all of this.
Thank you. And now we enter the 3-minute open round.
Well, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot that we disagree on this one particular question, but Chris, you touched on it coming from Ontario. Does anybody here have family in Ontario? Okay. I grew up in Ontario. My family's still there. My friends are still there. I started getting chatting with them about a year ago, and they would say that their hydro bills, their power bills, were doubling. And I thought, well, they can't be doubling. I mean, don't exaggerate. How much are they really going up? And then they would send me a screenshot of their bills 1 year to the next. And the architect of the mess that is the Ontario energy policy is Gerald Butts, and he's now running the Prime Minister's office. Justin Trudeau wants to export Ontario's nightmare to every other province. We need the Conservative Party back in power in 2018 so we can stop the madness.
Amen.
Yeah. So I think we're all agreed on that. You guys just didn't say it emphatically enough. No, I said it emphatically. No, the other thing I want to point out is that we have to consider Canada's position in the world. Canada's contributions to greenhouse gases is far less than 2%. And when you take the United States and you take China, you're at 45 to 48% contribution to the world's emissions. So as I mentioned, for all of the pain and suffering, the financial hardship that a carbon tax will inflict on you, on me, on my family, your families, it's going to have a minimal impact on greenhouse gases worldwide.
Yeah. And there is a big difference of opinion on the science. There is evidence on the one hand, there is considerable evidence on the one hand. On the other hand, the Trump administration is going to go hard on one end. We should make sure that Canada is at the forefront of tracking these environmental issues, and we as Conservatives should open a much broader discussion of the environment, of how we become the best at protecting fresh water, become the best at contributing to the safety and cleanliness of oceans around the world. We have the longest coastlines in the world, some of the most extensive forest cover in the world. How did we ever allow the environmental discussion to be reduced to to go down this rabbit hole of a carbon tax that doesn't work, that's regressive, that will hurt Canada's economy? We have to set the terms broader again. We have to get back to looking after the whole environment.
You mentioned clean water, and that's something I think the Conservative Party failed to tell the great story of our record. We increased the standards for wastewater being emitted into our rivers and lakes. The irony is not lost on me that it was a Liberal mayor of Montreal, under a Liberal government, that allowed millions of liters of raw sewage dumped in the St. Lawrence. Canada can also do a better job fighting for credit for steps we've already taken. The agricultural community in this country has reduced emissions tremendously, and we got no credit for that under the Liberals at the Paris Treaty talks. There's more we can do to get credit for work we've already done.
And there's no such thing as a revenue-neutral carbon tax.
Ever.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew Scheer, Pierre Lemieux, Chris Alexander. I'll invite Steve Schaefer to draw the next question and invite our next 3 candidates, Maxime Bernier, Erin O'Toole, Steve Blaney. The Ontarian sandwich between our 2 Quebec candidates.
The Quebec sandwich.
Juste moi et mes amis québécois.
It's all in French, Erin, this time.
Pas de problème, mon ami.
Our topic is the economy. According to the recently released report from the Department of Finance, fiscal projections concluded the Conservative plan under Stephen Harper would have resulted in a surplus of $1.7 trillion by fiscal year 2050 to 2051. Conversely, Prime Minister Trudeau's plan will result in a debt of over $1.5 trillion by the same fiscal year end. How long would a Conservative government take to return to balanced budgets, and what specific steps would the government take under your leadership to ensure that we do? Maxime Bernier, 1 minute.
2 years. That will take the time to be back with having a balanced budget at the federal level. And I think what the Trudeau government is doing right now, it is unfair. Unfair for the youth, unfair for the future generation, because you will have to pay for these big deficit and the debt, but you won't have any benefit. It's all spending that are not on infrastructure like the Trudeau government is telling us. But Justin Trudeau said during the campaign we'll have a literal deficit of $10 billion, and now we have a deficit of $30 billion. But we were supposed to have economic growth of 2.2%, and we just have economic growth of 1.2%. It is not working. Government spending is not working. We need more private investment, and I have a plan for that. Lower tax to every single businesses and every single Canadians.
Aaron O'Toole.
Thank you. This is the tragedy of the Trudeau government. In 1 year, friends, we went from a $1 billion surplus that it took the Conservatives several years to manage after the recession, $1 billion surplus, to a $30 billion deficit. Taxes went up on Canadians, on small business, and now a national carbon tax. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer, in his report on the first year of the Trudeau government, said 0 full-time jobs created. It is unbelievable how quickly the economic progress under the Conservatives have been frittered away. My approach is we've got to do exactly what we did under the Harper government and support our small to medium-sized business sectors. Places like this greenhouse. Every small business that hired during the growing back from the economic recession represented 1.3 million net new jobs by the Conservatives, while we kept taxes low on families and seniors and on job creators. All that has been reversed. We need desperately a Conservative government back.
Stephen Blaney.
You're right, but you forget something, Erin, about the Liberal, our current Prime Minister, you know. It's true he's running a huge deficit, you know, we all know that. But he's on a lot of front page magazine, you know. He's really popular. And he's good on selfie too, you know, so...
He's got more hair than us.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we did it. Actually, we all did it. Most, you know, like we were, for 11 years, we did it. We did balanced budget. And we did what I say is the most difficult thing for a politician to say. It's a 2-letter word. No. No to interest group, no to grant, no to anything, no to waste, no to wasteful spending. And yes to cutting red tape. That's what we did. Actually, that's what we did in the Veterans Affairs Department. That's what Vic Taves and my predecessor did at Public Safety. That's what Ed did too. So we can do it, but it takes courage. And sometimes it doesn't make good selfie, or it doesn't make people immediately happy. But the next generation that will have to shovel this deficit.
Thank you. So we now enter the 3-minute open round. Minister Blaney.
Oh, we're not done, Stephen.
Mr. Blaney.
I'd like to start now by, I missed my friend Mel Arnold, who's here, another one of our great BC team. Good to see you, Mel. Listen, we have to be smart as Conservatives, and we have to have a deliverable plan. We can balance the budget after the Trudeau $30 billion deficit, and my pledge will be to balance that budget over the course of the first mandate. But I want to see tax relief strategic again for small business and for our young people who are graduating with record high debt, high housing costs, particularly here in British Columbia, and the worst economic prospects of a job in 50 years. So we have to provide support. My concern is, Max, you suggest you're going to go to a 15% flat tax and balance the budget in 2 years? Impossible.
Yes, I will be able to do that because we will have a smaller government at the federal level. I want to abolish the CRTC in the telecom sector. I want to privatize Canada Post. I want to privatize the airport. That's big reform, and yes, when you do big reform like that, we'll be able to balance the budget.
Canada Post is off book. There's a lot of the things you're saying, and I agree with smaller government. But we have to be able to look to Canadians and say, here is our plan. It's deliverable. It's not just an election slogan, it's deliverable. And if you look on my website, aaronotoole.ca, every policy we're putting out is cost tested and made to make sure we're more prosperous in the future. And we've got to do it in a way that's deliverable.
Okay, so talking about website, you know, there's Andrew budget plan, there's your thing, but there's also one thing I want you to look on my website. And Maxime, it's especially for you. It's from the Boston Consulting Group. You know Kevin O'Leary is from Boston. Here's a study from an independent American group. And you know what it says? It says that we have a great Canadian flagship, and this is our farming industry, this is supply management. And it says, were we to get rid of that? Well, Maxime, you would be running big deficit. Let me finish on that, Maxime. You know what?
I just want to let you know that the story is sponsored by the dairy producer.
So, Maxime,
Agropur. They sponsor the study.
Are you shy of your own dairy farmer in your riding?
Gentlemen, we're on the same team.
Look.
We need only
Erin?
look at Ed Fast, who negotiated the most important trade deal in Canadian history, and we did it by respecting
Maxime,
all sectors of agriculture.
This study was paid
we can
by
do this,
Boston,
Stephen.
was done by Boston Consulting Group. What it says that our economy depends on our farming sector, that it is good for the consumer.
I want to help every industry in Canada, not only the agriculture industry.
Montrait, les consommateurs would be screwed with your crazy plan, you know
Stephen,
that, Maxime?
Stephen.
And you should read that study and base your comments on facts.
S'il vous plaît. What we did and what Ed Fast
did. But
did.
I will fight for the truth. I will fight for farmers. I will fight for our economy and our prosperity. Thank you.
What we need is a plan. And once again, we have to be deliverable. Ed Fast and our team showed you can open up market access for beef, pork, oil seeds, while not throwing 18,000 farming families off the bus. So, Maxime, I want a plan that's balanced, that respects all farming families.
Let me speak
we
about
did
that.
it in the past, we can do it again.
We'll be back. We'll be back to that.
Gentlemen, time's up. But Maxime Bernier, one sentence.
One sentence.
I'm sorry.
Why do we have to protect one industry only?
Thank you. Our next question will be drawn by the VP of Mission Matsqui, Fraser Canyon, Tim Ludwig. And I'll invite Kelly Leach for our last group. Kelly Leach, Michael Chong, and Andrew Saxon. And there they are. The category is healthcare. The current Liberal government has committed to reviewing their 8-month-old euthanasia law in a few years. As leader of the Conservative Party, what specific action would you take if it was discovered that our most vulnerable citizens were at immediate risk of being harmed by deficiencies or flaws in the existing Liberal government legislation, Bill C-14? Kelly Leach.
So I have significant concerns with regards to the current legislation. I'm a practicing physician. In fact, when I was in full-time practice, 50% of the people I took care of were children with disabilities. My concern is also for my colleagues that may be pro-choice versus pro-life. This legislation treats physicians and healthcare workers differently. That's not what we're about in Canada. We're fair and equitable. So I would be reviewing this legislation, taking a look at it to also make sure that those that want palliative care also receive that palliative care, something we have not moved forward on, and we see the Liberals make that promise but haven't moved forward. So this is a contentious issue, I know, but for myself, it's about families and making sure that they receive the care they deserve, and that includes palliative care.
Thank you. Michael Chong, 1 minute.
If there are gaps in the current law on euthanasia, then I think we should look at closing those gaps, and I think we should wait for a couple of years before making that evaluation. As a Conservative, I believe in freedom of conscience. And as a Conservative, I believe that social conservatives are a welcome and important part of our party. As party leader, my commitment to you is to ensure that social conservatives have a strong and public voice in my party. A party where conservatives of all stripes can stand up on matters of conscience, voice their opinion, and vote freely in the House of Commons. That's why I have a 10-point plan on democratic reform in order to ensure that social conservatives have that voice in my party. It's also the reason why I introduced the Reform Act in the last Parliament, to ensure that party leaders cannot shut down debates on these important issues of conscience.
Andrew Saxon.
I voted against euthanasia as Member of Parliament because I was concerned that people at their most vulnerable time would be making decisions that are irreversible. That's why I voted against it. I'm very concerned about the healthcare system in Canada. A few years ago, I rushed my mother to emergency. We were told to wait in the waiting room. We waited for 3 hours. I watched my mother have a stroke in the waiting room of the hospital because they didn't have enough attendants to look after us. I don't want anybody else in this audience to go through what I went through. And don't think it's going to get better. We've got a freight train coming right at us. It's called the baby boom generation. And as the baby boom generation gets older, it's going to be harder and harder for our healthcare system to keep up. We have to have a system that delivers services more efficiently, more effectively, and in a cost-efficient manner. As Prime Minister of Canada, I will make sure that we have a healthcare system that supports all Canadians.
A reminder to the candidates, the question regarding the 8-month-old euthanasia law, C14. So there's a 3-minute round for you to continue your discussion.
I think we were all in agreement, so it makes it a little challenging here. You know, as Andrew was saying, talk about supply management, okay. I support supply management, just so we're clear, but I think these guys do too. You know, let's be clear, as I mentioned, I'm a practicing pediatric surgeon. I have an idea of exactly what happens to the point that Andrew made when his mother hit the emergency department. We have some serious challenges in our healthcare system. But they're not going to be solved by just showing up with your Visa card. As Andrew said, this is a complicated issue. And what I think we need to look at is how do we innovate the system so that the loved ones that you have when you show up at the Emerge get the care that they need. That includes more healthcare professionals. That includes making sure that we innovate and make sure telehealth provides care for families. What it doesn't mean is bickering between the provincial and federal governments. And what it doesn't mean, as I say, is only showing up with your Visa card. So for myself, I'm not about dismantling the healthcare system. I'm about what do we do to innovate more, and I'm sure my colleagues are in agreement.
Yeah, just building on what Kelly has to say about euthanasia, I think one of the flaws in the legislation that was passed is that it didn't have strong enough freedom of conscience protection for healthcare practitioners and for institutions. Doctors entered the profession with an oath to preserve life. And many doctors feel strongly that they should not violate that oath, and they don't even feel comfortable referring patients to another doctor for euthanasia. And I think legislation should it should ensure that there is the strongest of freedom of conscience protections for this kind of legislation, so that those who are committed to not practicing it don't violate their own personal code when it comes to this issue.
And just to add to that, we'll get to Andrew.
We're almost out of time. I just want to say about, Kelly has very helpfully seen the healthcare system from the point of view of a doctor, physician. Most of us in this room have seen it from the point of view of a patient. And I can tell you that there's a lot that needs to be done to help in our healthcare system. We're not talking about taking out a credit card. We're talking about the delivery of the service. Does the delivery have to be by the government? We're one of the few countries left in the world that only has one delivery system for healthcare. Why can't we look at other models and have private healthcare delivered by the private sector but paid for by the government? So we're not talking about taking out a credit card.
Just to go back to what Michael said, he's absolutely correct with regards to physician conscience rights, but it's also about all healthcare providers. I don't want any nurse or any young resident, anyone who's a physiotherapist, or anyone involved in the care of a patient to feel they're compromising their conscience. So as much as it's talked about in the vein of us as physicians, myself included, let's remember this is about all healthcare professionals working with the families that they care about, and they should all be granted that ability.
Thank you, Kelly Leach, Michael Chung, Andrew Saxton. Everyone, please give all of our candidates a big round of applause.